you're just a shit kid, and you don't think about it. You don't think about it as much, and you're not as appreciative.
Like how much leadership is inherent, how much is learned, how much is practiced.
All great leaders are followers to start.
I wanted to start the show. We actually had a few ideas on pivots, but my idea changed because Raf and I trained yesterday with the team, or not with the team, but around the team. And we walked through the gym, we were playing with all the different equipment and stuff. And so it got me thinking that, having seen you basically from Bigger, Stronger, Faster, like way back in the day, it's essentially why we're here. We were telling Chris before, it's super cool. We've watched the evolution. I remember seeing a video of the super training. I think it was the first one where like CrossFit came along and they were like, hey, this is the guys making like the powerlifting shoe and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're obviously a lot bigger back then. And now we come to this gym and it's seen so many different evolutions. I think it's kind of followed the fitness industry a little bit as well, because obviously Rogue exists now and Rogue didn't really exist back then. So kind of what's available is a lot different. Having shifted kind of from powerlifting into bodybuilding and back and forth, and I think, there's probably heaps of stuff that, and you've mentioned before, like you stepped into that bodybuilding world and so many things probably changed. You're like, wow, I never thought about that this way, or training this way, or I didn't realize I was like this. From an innovation perspective, obviously the Sling Shot came out of your powerlifting needs. Has anything come about in your mind from bodybuilding where you're like, man, I really think we should need this sort of product, or maybe this sort of supplement? Or like, what kind of innovative ideas have come to your mind as you stepped into that bodybuilding world and kind of lived through it?
No, nothing like that, really. The bodybuilding stuff just made me realize that I was probably working at like about maybe 60% of my capacity because of how much involvement the nutrition is. Such a huge aspect of it. Obviously, the cardiovascular training is a huge part of it as well. There was just a lot left on the table where I was like, you know what? Like, I've been a bitch for so long, really, and it boils down to it. But I just didn't know. I didn't have the knowledge. I did everything and anything that I could during my powerlifting career. And I never really shifted from bodybuilding or powerlifting. Most of my stuff most of my training is always similar. It's always the same. So I did do a bodybuilding show, but I'm not a bodybuilder. Yeah. I'm a powerlifter. I love powerlifting. I always have, always will. It's my first true love, and we'll be together forever. Nice. Till the grave.
So no new equipment came out of the need for bodybuilding? You weren't like, shit, I need this machine, or I need to add this in that you didn't have before?
I like the usage of machines, but I'm not about to try to make any of them anytime soon. Right. I'm trying to go like vertical with what we got and not spread our wings too thin.
Yep.
Like we need to make sure that we can execute making a proper post, before we can really start to run around and try to figure out, a lot of other things. So, make sure that we're advertising correctly, make sure that we're spending our money in the right spots. And I believe that the company can grow. I believe this company can double what it is right now with everything that we have inside the building already. So then it's like, I think everyone's always looking for the need to like do all this other stuff, and we are guilty of that for sure, because I have a lot of crazy plans for this place. One which includes putting like a giant ass studio in the new space that we just got.
Podcast studio?
No, it'll be like a recorded live studio where we can do training and things like that, because it takes time. You have Matt Wenning come in here, Stan Efferding, or we have Charles Glass coming in. Well, now we can create content on our own before Charles Glass or somebody like that gets here, and we can say, here's the 3 things that we'd like to get out of this. Okay, Charles, can you talk about, bodybuilding nutrition specific, maybe give him something real specific, a real topic to talk about. He would talk, he would sit in front of the camera. Maybe I interview him if he's not real comfortable on camera, or somebody interviews him, and it's recorded live and it's done. It's shot like our podcast is recorded live. I don't physically mean to actually be live. it could be live, but that's not the most important thing. But recorded live and edited live, I guess, is my main point. So there's really no post to it, and so we can really fire out a really large amount of stuff. And I think that, idea like that, it makes the company, like, it really, shifts your focus a lot, right? So
what do you mean by that?
Well, when we do something like that, so we currently make products, right?
Yeah.
And then we currently have some offshoot things that are indirect sales, which would be podcast, the YouTube channel, even like my Instagram, right? Then we have like direct sales where we got like the MB Sling Shot Instagram, and we have just advertising. We advertise on Facebook and Instagram and places like that. We put ad dollars behind that, and that's very traditional advertising. And we'll even shoot commercials. I might even shoot something actually explaining the product, and that might exist on like IG Story or IG Live or whatever. But what we're about to do is going to really flip everything on its head, because it's going to be quite different than anything we've done before. At least it will look a lot different than what we've done before. It will give us it will really open up the door for us to be able to double and triple, what we're able to produce. Because I would like for this like 30,000 square foot facility to be utilized all the time. We have to. It's not any cheaper the less we use it, right? So it'd be great to have, like, working around the clock. It'd be great if we shot 5 or 10 videos in here every day that helped sell a product. And so what I mean by sidetracking you, we have Sling Shot, we have the current things that we currently work on. Well, now we have this whole new thing. And so what does that look like? Do we have everything that we need to be able to do that? And we might need to hire more people, or that might need to be, it's like its own separate thing. But I'm excited about it because no one's doing anything remotely close to that. So I'm really pumped about it.
So it's going to let you create more content and release it faster, essentially.
Both and things that are just different. I think it'll just look and feel different because we can have a more professional look to it. We can have a green screen behind it, and it can have a white background. It can look clinical if we want.
Yeah.
Or it can look a little over the top. We can throw like a chain link fence. It will be a set.
Right.
It'll be a set, and there'll be 3 different areas where there'll be 3 different sets. Maybe one's like a little rugged, maybe one's a little cleaner, and then maybe one is like for almost like a podcast type of thing.
Right.
Which wouldn't be our current podcast, but might just be like sit down round table type thing.
Would you do training in it, or you would just do sit down talking?
Yeah, I might do training in there. Okay. It just really depends on what I don't have the full setup. I don't have a full vision for the setup 100%, but I got some ideas cooking. So
your vision for this place is really to become like the highest producing, best quality information and entertainment for everyone out there.
That's the goal. I mean, I think when I originally invented the Sling Shot, and then made wrist wraps and stuff to go along with it, and a few other products, one of the goals right away was I want to be able to like cover people head to toe, because every joint hurts, right? It's not just your wrist, it's not just your elbow. Like everything hurts, right? There's not a piece of real estate in your body that doesn't kill, right?
Doesn't need a sleeve. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I'm trying to think, how do I mummify everybody? And so the Sling Shot gets the shoulders, the hip circle serves the hips, the compression cuffs get the elbows. Even the Sling Shot helps the elbows, shoulders, pecs, things like that. And so we have most of it down. We got knee sleeves and elbow sleeves, and then I made a shoe with Reebok years ago, a powerlifting shoe. And so as I was kind of like, figuring out how to go head to toe, and it took us a while to make belts, and then I did it. And, but somewhere along that line, I was like, oh my God, like this isn't a company that makes powerlifting gear. We're not a company that makes products. We are 50% a company that makes products and 50% media, at least.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's not about how good your product is. It's about how well you can sell your product in the long run. I'm passionate about making good products, but people don't care whether I'm passionate or not. They want to know how I can serve them. If we took a picture of all 3 of us, and someone showed us the picture right away, our eyeballs would go to 3 different spots. We'd all look at ourselves, You're always looking like, what's in it for me? And you want to know, what's the direct return? Like, let's say that we do take a picture of all 3 of us, and for some reason, like one of you guys are like, you're etched out of it or something, or you're just not in the frame. you probably look at it for half a second and be like, oh, let's take another one.
Yeah.
Or if your eyes are closed, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing in it for you.
Right.
And that's just the way our brain kind of works. So I want to be able to try to, you know, work on kind of playing into that psyche of, you know, the kind of like what's in it for me type of mentality of, you know, I kind of forget some of the things that happened in the beginning. I forget that I used to not know how to warm up. I forget that I used to not know how to select my weights as I got towards my max and things like that, things that you take for granted. But, you know, being able to explain the products is something that we don't even really, we're doing it now, but the company's been around. We're going on 9 years in July. July 27th will be the 9th year of Sling Shot. And we have yet to really explain every product just because we aim and shoot and just go. We just do. We just produce shit and we just keep flying with it. And we do a decent job of having explanations on the website and stuff, but to try to go through every SKU that we have and to try to physically hold it up and say, this is what this thing does and this is how it can serve you is something that we haven't executed well on yet. And I think that studio will provide that.
Right. Okay. So with a lot of the products, we had, who's the Asian girl that works here? She like walked us
Joey?
through. Joey walked us through all the different products. And it was the same thing. It was like when she went through the sleeves section, like the Sling Shot section, I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that's what that was for. Yeah. I just kind of always saw you wearing it and using it. And I like basically put two and two together. I was like, I essentially, you know, from the stuff that you've mentioned, figured out what it was for. But having her explain it more, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because in that moment, it was like, this is what I could get out of it. And so I was thinking, oh yeah, this is how I could use it, right? That's when it's valuable. Have you ever thought, now we discussed this with the Mind Pump guys, have you ever thought, you know, because you've been the face of this company for so long and you have started to shift more faces into the brand, have you ever thought there might be a time where you don't want to be the face of the brand anymore and you want to kind of move it to just Sling Shot and kind of separate yourself from it?
You know, for now it's the way it is. And, but yes, 100%. I mean, I've thought about like dying, you know, I thought about like, what if I'm dead, you know, like,
is that a good career move?
Yeah. What's the scenario that this place is left with?
Right.
And I can honestly answer, I don't think it would, maybe at first it would negatively impact the company. But we're reaching so many new customers all the time that don't even have any clue who I am. So you know, hopefully that trend continues, because I thought about this about 5 years ago, or maybe about 3 years ago. You know, what if I just wasn't here anymore? What if I just got sick, let's say, you know, and I'm just like I can't lift or whatever, you know. And there's been scenarios where I haven't been able to really perform or lift the way that I need to, and it's never hurt the company. It might hurt my Instagram account or something for a little while. People might get bored of me showing my new watches or whatever. But you know, it's I think I got it set up good enough. We have enough great people here to where the company's in good hands. Everybody kind of understands the mission. The goal is we have, you know, a one-liner for our goal, which is we're here to make the world a better place to lift. And if it doesn't entail that, then let's just not do it, you know. And it's kind of that, you hear people say this all the time, you know, if it's not like a hell yeah, then we don't do it. Like we might look at something and say, and then if it gets that response, then we're not going to make it. You know, we want to try to make things that we feel really, really serve a purpose or serve a specific need. You know.
How involved are you in that whole process? Like
100%. Yeah, that's all me. Everything that you guys see in here is 100% came from my fat head. There's a few things that are newer, and maybe in terms of like apparel. Yeah. But every piece of gear that you see out there, in terms of like a compression cuff or a knee sleeve or elbow sleeve or any of those things, those are all creations of mine that I've had. Some of them have danced around in my head for years, you know, and I have a lot more stuff too that I'm excited about. But now we also brought on 2 engineers, which we didn't have before. Product engineers, which is wild, because now I get to actually physically go over stuff. They're both gifted in a bunch of different areas, but the short of it is, one guy's gifted in software and the other guy's gifted in hardware. So one guy can do 3D rendering on the computer and the other guy can take a 3D printer and give you like a sample of it. and then they both already have experience. They both know sourcing and stuff like that. So, this hopefully other people who listen to this podcast that are competitors, because they might as well just
tap out now.
They might as well tap out now. Yeah, they're in a pretty good arm bar.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's an exponential process in business, right? Like you grind for so long, you put in so much work that you feel like, man, this is like I'm not reaping any rewards right now. Like I feel like I'm working harder than everyone. I have a good product, I put out the content, all this stuff, and then it kind of reaches this tipping point, and now it feels like you're getting all the results that you'd worked for, but just in a really short time frame.
I feel like that every day. I mean, still.
Yeah.
I really do. I because I'm competitive with the whole thing. I want to be further ahead along than we are, but I know that certain things happen, most things happen for certain reasons. And in this case, it's like you're not ready for it. If the company was like double of where we are now, we wouldn't be ready for it. Like something would be too chaotic, something would be too jacked up, and like something would sweep away, that whole entire thing, and everything would be all jacked up. I mean, you hear about a lot of companies die faster from growth than they do from, diving down slowly, right? They just can't handle what's going on. And so this is a good learning process. This is a good, we're picking up a lot of stuff, and we have the right amount of firepower to continue to move forward in the way that we need to move forward. But I do feel that all the time, especially with especially more so with like my YouTube videos and my Instagram. But I can't sit there and kind of wonder, why does this have 11,000 views as opposed to something else that somebody else did, or even something else that I did that has 200,000 views? Because once you do that, then you're no longer being an influencer is a really weird thing, because people are called followers, but it's actually really weird because the followers can dictate the influencers to a certain extent. Those likes start to count up. If you guys keep liking some stuff that I'm posting and other people are liking it, and I'm seeing those likes really accumulate into the thousands, and I'm like, okay, wow, I got a really good response. Okay, people love when I do a double bicep pose or whatever, so I'm going to keep doing, then they're dictating what I'm doing, and now we have a huge problem. So with the products, I'm not allowed to do this anymore, but they have a lot of rules for me here.
in my company that I own.
They've set up a lot of rules for me. And this is just so there's no surprises, and they don't get it gets to be confusing to a certain extent. But I used to not take anybody's opinion on the different products that I was creating, and I'd kind of create stuff just in secret, because I didn't want anybody else's opinion. I don't want to hear what you have to say about it. I don't want you to tell me that the knee sleeve is too scratchy, or it hurts, or like it's too tight, or it's too strong, or whatever. I don't want your fucking opinion about it. I know what's right, and I'm going to move forward and make sure that it's right, So that's what I would do. And then once the product's actually made, then I would say, hey, let's test this out. Let's make sure it doesn't rip. Let's make sure it's strong enough. And the next step is to just get it out there in the universe and get it out there to some of our athletes, and then the athletes can give us feedback, and then the next step is to get out in the public, and the public will hammer you. They'll let you know right away, hey, this product sucks.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's great, because that gives you the information that you need to kind of make that 2.0. It's like every company has to go through that. You have to learn that. But if you don't if you're scared and you're trying to wait for something to be perfect, you'll never get there. You're not going to start out with a perfect product.
Yeah, like just what you said before is like companies dying too fast from growth. I reckon another thing that kills companies is like the owners are not reinvesting the majority of the profits back into the company. How did you take, what was your approach in kind of that aspect? I know because you've got kids, you got a family, right? People relying on you. It's different. We don't have all that. So, we can kind of take bigger risks and kind of reinvest all that. So how did you manage that with the growth of the company and going, I could use this money and maybe, buy nicer toys or go out to dinners and stuff,
more expensive
right?
steaks.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Or, play the long game, right? We still live a little bit leaner, but I invest, this extra $10,000, $20,000 and work it and turn it into 10x that.
Yeah, that's a very hard line to kind of walk, because if I post about like cars and watches and things, and like it seems like in abundance, and always going first class everywhere and certain things like that. After a while, when you start to make some money, $5 is just not that big of a deal, and as you start to make more money is less of a deal. Same thing with your strength. Same thing with your body fat levels. If you've been between 4 and 8% body fat like most of your life, well, being in that range is no sweat.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, that's kind of like that's what you know. Or even if you were heavier before and you lost a bunch of weight, well, now this is your new normal. You're now lean like this all the time, and it's not extraordinary to you. Just like, when I would bench press 500 pounds like routinely, like almost weekly, new people would come in the gym and they go, "Fuck, man," they go, "That's amazing." And I'm like, I appreciate that you're giving me credit. I understand what you're saying. And yes, it does take a long time to work for it, but it's just consistency.
Yeah.
That's all that it is. And same thing with building up like finances. A lot of times it's just consistency. For some people it takes a longer period of time than others, but it's still going to take some sort of consistency on like finding what's right and finding what works well for you and kind of finding your niche in the whole thing. But probably the biggest concern with what to do with your finances is probably the more the reflection it has on you with the people that are around you, more so than the people that are outside of that. So the people on Instagram, like if I get a new house or do something, like I'm going to share that. It's just purely because I want to share it. I want to share the information with people because I feel that a lot of people have been there from the beginning. They've been following my story. You guys said you've been watching pretty much since Bigger, Stronger, Faster. And so if you guys are like threatened by it in some weird way, well, I can't control that. But I'm hoping it's more so like, dude, this is pretty cool. Like this guy's in the industry just like us. And we watched Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and he was a fat-ass powerlifter. And look, he went and he did bodybuilding, and now he's got his own business, and his business is thriving, and he's able to provide this, and he's going on these trips with his family, and he's, you kind of start to kind of think of it that way more. That's the way I'm hoping that it's perceived. I'm hoping that people aren't perceiving it as me just being like this money-hungry asshole or something like that. But that's where you can kind of get into a little bit of trouble with the people that work. I say work with me rather than for me. The people that work here with me, if they're not paid that well, they might get animosity towards that. And I've had things like that happen before, where people are like, they don't pay enough, and it's like, well, let's reframe the conversation here. We do pay enough. We don't pay you enough because you're not doing your job.
Right.
You're not progressing. We started you out at a certain level, and we want to make sure that you're the right person for this group, because the only people that we're going to hire here are eagles, and eagles only fly. They only soar to a certain level, and they don't see ducks and swans and crows and stuff like that. You guys probably heard the analogy before. Yeah. They only see other eagles, and we want people in here that want to work really hard, that are into what we're doing, that are not trying to, cause a lot of anxiety and cause a lot of drama and a lot of bullshit. We want people that understand the mission. And I come in here every morning, and whether I feel like I have time for it or not, I create time for it. Whether I'm in a good mood or bad mood, I turn myself into a good mood. And I come in here and I like fist bump everybody, hug everybody, say hi to everybody. I try to make sure to do it every day. Same thing with, on the way out, I check in with people. I've had people here before where it looks like they're upset, and they're like, "Hey, I'll see you later." I'm like, "How you doing?" They're like, "Oh, I'm okay." I'm like, No. I'm sitting down. Like, what's going on? And here I am already here an hour later than I should be. I should be going home, right? But this is the most important thing to me at the moment. So the people that work here, I've already identified with enough to where if they see me with like Gucci shades or something like that, it's not going to be problematic. in terms of the actual business and like, making sure the business moves forward and not just my own bank account or my own assets and stuff like that. A lot of that is on the shoulders of my wife. She handles a lot of that stuff, and she's more of the dollars and cents person. Like, I don't know a lot of things. Like, I don't know how much this building costs. I don't know how much my house costs. I don't know how much my truck cost. Like, I don't care, and I don't know how much this stuff is. She just says whether we can kind of go for it or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good way to be.
I'm just trying to pile up. I just keep putting up points on the scoreboard, and then somebody else tells me what the score is later on.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's a good approach.
Was there a turning point where you really changed your behavior in terms of interacting with everyone else here? Was there like a wake-up call when you like grew to a certain size? You're like, I can't keep going on like this.
Yeah.
Or I just have to like take their opinions into account when I do just my day.
Yeah, like how much leadership is inherent, how much is learned, how much is practiced.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the leadership stuff is stuff that I've learned over the years from having other great leaders. All great leaders are followers to start. All leading it always starts with imitation of some kind. And who else has another free powerlifting gym in this country? Louis Simmons, and who's like one of my mentors, right? Who else has a product that he invented and did really well? You know what I mean? So, right. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff can be attributed to what I saw at Westside Barbell, and a lot of the craftiness and stuff comes from my dad and my grandpa and stuff as well. But that had your family's never going to have the real impact on you, because like you're just a shit kid, and you don't think about it. You don't think about it as much, and you're not as appreciative as it. And then here I was thinking, oh, Louis Simmons is so cool, right? And he was cool, and he is cool. But my real mentors, when I look back at it from the beginning, I'm like, oh, it was my dad. Because Louis Simmons didn't teach me how to be like a man and stuff. Like my dad, my dad did all that stuff, and my brothers. But yeah, when you're kind of going through it, and you're seeing people like Louis and other people that have been a big part of my life, like Dave Tate, and just having good, strong friends and stuff, like my friend Jesse Burdick, having people like that in your life, that I aspire and I admire a lot of the things that those people have done, and so that rubs off on me tremendously. And I try to look at the attributes that make them unique. Louis Simmons was not afraid to spend time with you, and so I always thought that was pretty cool. Time is, a huge thing. I always teach my children, that's the way that we spell love in our family, is Time, because you need to spend time with people. It's not about quality time or quantity time. It's just about, you just have to spend time, period. Maybe sometimes you're not even, like with your spouse or something, maybe you're not even like getting along, but you got to kind of like be there. And sometimes one spouse might be in one room, one spouse in the other room, but it's better than them being off on some business trip, right? It's better than, one might be watching Game of Thrones, the other one might be watching Walking Dead or whatever. And yeah, it is nice to share things and to do stuff together. Not everything always has to be 100% together, but it is important that you're there and you're around each other. Growing up and just watching my dad, like being a teenager and just seeing the way my dad always acted and seeing the way he treated my mom all the time, I was always kind of blown away. As I got older and got like more into girls and stuff, I would watch, and I'm like, okay, there's absolutely no possible way that my dad will not look at this girl who's walking by, and my dad would never look. It didn't matter how hot the girl was. And I'm like, I thought about later on in life, I'm like, does he know that I was like watching him, or is he just that, like, is he that much of a badass that he doesn't need, he loves my mom so much he doesn't even care, whatever the case is. But yeah, I mean, kind of later on, he told me, he's like, I knew that I was setting an example for you. So yes, I saw them, Yeah. He's like, I'm human. I saw them, but he knew he was setting an example for me, and that kind of stuff. That made me understand the value of family and just those kinds of things really help build a lot of structure. So with the people here, the people that work here with Sling Shot, I try to explain to them that I work with Sling Shot just like they do. I work for Sling Shot just like they do, and we all work with each other. I I don't really ever want to be labeled as like a boss. You know, a leader is probably a better thing. I can say, hey, follow me. This is a good way to go. But as a boss, you might be like behind somebody and you might be pushing them. And it's like, how often does somebody want to get pushed? And if I got to push you, that's a lot of energy on me. You're starting to get frustrated. I mean, every once in a while, if I got to come in and say, hey, wake up, dude. Like, hey, let's do this. Let's go. Like, if I got to kind of push you along a little bit that way, then totally understandable. We all need a little kick in the pants here and there, right?
Yeah.
But, I just think being around people, being real with them, having them understand you, spending time with them, that's kind of what I do in my just relationships in general. I try to like kind of go in a circle and just say, I'll just like look at somebody and be like, man, I haven't really checked in on this person in a while. Why don't I just go, even on my phone through text and stuff, I'll be like, man, I haven't talked to that person in a while. I should at least just say something. How's it going? What are you up to? Something. I try, but you sometimes start to get kind of cornered by having enough time,
Yeah, well, there's so many people you want to reach out to all the time and help. And what I've realized sometimes is there's only so much you can do for that person before they know you're doing your best. And now it's up to them to make that move, right? They're a little bit stuck in their life, or, they're maybe not performing or reaching their numbers or whatever it is. And you come in there, you give them a little pep talk, the boost, I'm here for you, this, that. And then I think, okay, I'll just keep following up with them every day. Just make sure they're on point. But really, now it's up to them. And I think if I stepped in more often, they might lean on me too much and be like, all right, I'm waiting for my daily accountability boost before I get any work done today. Where's Locke? And it's like, well, no, now it's up to you, because you got to have that integrity with yourself to kind of keep pushing forward.
Something I learned as a leader as well is a lot of people don't get enough credit. A lot of people have a lot of great things inside them. They already know a lot of the answers. Andy Galpin, who's tremendous nutritionist, doctor. I don't know if he'd even be considered a nutritionist, but anyway, Andy is insanely brilliant when it comes to nutrition. He said, the best way to get an answer out of somebody about their nutrition is just to stare at them. So like I might say, hey, are carbs bad? And then you would just be like, can you eat too much protein? You just keep staring, and eventually the person will kind of come to the realization that like the questions they're asking really they're not great, and they're not really fair. Like where they're coming from is not fair,
right? And
they should have more thought behind them. And so I think that people are better leaders than they give themselves credit for. And if somebody's to sit down and somebody and no one ever really does this. No one ever really like approaches you directly. But if they were to sit down and say, let's just say it's about the gym, because business-wise, no one's ever going to say, hey, why aren't I making more money, right? Like no one's just ever going to say that. They're too uncomfortable. But they should. Because then you'd be able to very easily explain, why and what the path would be, right? But let's just say they're struggling in the gym and they're like, man, I've been trying to bench over 300 pounds for 3 years and I'm just stuck. I've tried everything. And then you could say, well, what? I don't know, man. Like, it sucks, man. It sucks. I've been stuck before too. What are 2 or 3 things you think would really help that? Just kind of look at them and say, well, and they'll start to say, oh, if I'm being honest, I'm not eating enough protein, and like, I've been pretty stressed at work and not getting enough sleep. They're going to walk you right through it. And you might have, you might say, oh, I'll try some board presses or something, but it's not going to be the board presses. It's not going to be the bands or the chains or the dynamic effort method that gets them a new bench press. It's going to be their mindset, and it's going to be their lifestyle, and they're going to have to kind of rededicate themselves to kind of implementing multiple changes to get to the answer that they're really looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when we sit new clients down in our gyms and what are your goals? Oh, I just really want to get a little bit fitter, get a little bit stronger. Oh, cool. What else? Oh, that's pretty much it. And then I like pretend to type something in, and then they can say, oh, he's typing now. Okay, here comes the waterfall. And then it's just that, like you said, it's just that small moment of silence, and then every desire that they want to get or they believe they can get from a gym, from someone that can help them, it comes out,
They say a bunch of stuff that they ordinarily would feel dumb to say.
Exactly.
Like, I want to overcome my anxiety. I was abused as a kid, and they start laying out all this stuff, and you're like, whoa, okay. Like, hey, now you're like, okay, now you're telling me too much. but it ends up being that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you've almost got to play dumb at the start, right? Because as soon as you start giving the answers, it's cut off.
yeah, you want to listen. You want to listen. And when you listen, then you can ask the right questions and then you can make the right moves. I'm not sure who it was. I want to say Tony Robbins. He said, before I give one answer, I try and ask 20 questions for that person. And I'm like, that's perfect, right? The more questions you can ask, then by the time it comes to what you're going to say, because you always know what you're going to say, that could change dramatically. Question 1, you're like, okay, I've got the answer for this person. But by question 20, you might have a completely different answer for that person with what they need help with, right?
I think we would all think that great leaders answer questions, but the greatest leaders ask questions.
Yeah.
And they listen.
Yeah, exactly. How have you found so like before you said you left, or you feel like you're working at 60% before you kind of stepped into bodybuilding. Since then, like what has changed in terms of like your daily just operational stuff? Like you getting up super early and stuff. Were you doing that before bodybuilding, or did bodybuilding kind of get you up earlier and make you more productive?
So I've always been a little bit of a lunatic, when it comes to a lot of these things. But a lot of things have also been built over the years in terms of like work ethic. Like that took a long time to really build it to where I wasn't just like a bum. Like I was still, tough and hardcore in the gym. But like that's all I had for many, many years. That's all I did. I wasn't academic, and I wasn't. I played like football and stuff like that. But other than like being in the gym, there wasn't anything like I could even be super proud of, really, to be honest. So the addiction to weights has always kind of pulled me to lifting at all hours of the day. I've gone through different, cycles where I've lifted at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. And even when I was super young, sometimes I would even lift before school, like when I was in high school, and I was into boxing and stuff as well. I boxed with Kevin Rooney in the Catskills, who used to be Mike Tyson's trainer. Wow. And I used to go and run at like, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning, something like that. Yeah. And it's like 10 degrees outside, So I've always been a little crazy and a little obsessed with all that stuff. And then for many years I got on schedule with like, lifting with my team and lifting like a power lifter, where there's a lot more rest involved. There's a lot more, a powerlifting workout can take 2 hours, 3 hours. It could take a really long, if you look at the clock, from the time you start your warm up until the time you're like actually exiting the building, it could be 3 hours.
Yeah, we saw yesterday they were bringing cookies in like halfway. Yeah. That doesn't happen at a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, I've had that discipline on lockdown for a really long time. What the bodybuilding stuff did for me is it rescheduled my life, because when I was younger, like sleep didn't matter, the food didn't matter as much. Like I just didn't know. Yeah. It still mattered. It still counted, but I wasn't counting it. I wasn't accounting for it.
Definitely weren't weighing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't paying any attention to it. And I knew about like ketogenic diets and stuff, and I've messed around with that stuff like in the mid-90s and things, but I wasn't like locked in, I wasn't super locked into it. And so as I got older, when I went and did this bodybuilding show from Adair, from Hani Rambod, or not even Adair, it was a suggestion really when he was on my podcast. He's like, you're in good shape. He's like, you should do a bodybuilding show. And he mentioned, when the show is, and I was like, shit, I don't know anything about bodybuilding. So if you're going to help me, then I'll gladly do it. Yeah. And so, I knew what that would entail. I had friends tell me before about like prepping for a show and stuff. But man, it took everything I had, and if I was like grade myself on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say I was probably like an 8.5 to a 9, somewhere in there. There's a couple things I missed. There's a couple days where I was supposed to get in a second session of cardio or something that I didn't do. Right. There's a couple times I was a little off base with my food. Like there's just a couple little things, but I really did try my best, and it feels like, if you're a basketball fan, it feels like a full court press all day long. It feels like the entire team, this entire team of people are trying to steal the ball from you all day long. Right. And you don't have a second to yourself. And like the sleep, every minute of sleep really matters. Your cardio training really matters. Your training matters. Tanning even is time consuming. The whole thing is very, and then like little stupid things. You got to be all shaved up, and like there's a lot of shit that goes into bodybuilding. And then even like again on a smaller note, like you're doing that amount of cardio, especially for me, it was like in the middle of summer, you go through so much clothes. The clothes just pile up. Like,
lucky you make clothes.
Yeah, and my wife does the laundry and stuff, so it doesn't really do anything to me. But it's like, what do I even do with these clothes? They're so wet.
Yeah.
And like, I would travel to Gold's Gym and train with Mike O'Hearn at 4 a.m. We'd get done with our training session. I would change out of those clothes because they were drenched, and then I would do cardio. And then I would hop in like an Uber and go back to where we were in Malibu, drenched like that the whole time, just getting the whole back of the guy's car, super wet. It was disgusting. But yeah, the dedication to wake up early was re-sparked by bodybuilding. The other disciplines that I learned from doing the bodybuilding stuff, like I said, I think maybe some of my life was at like 60%. I don't mean like my lifting necessarily or just my lifting, but I just mean like my overall lifestyle and being prepared and being ahead. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I was like, I'll do that tomorrow. It wasn't that attitude. It's just I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. I didn't recognize it, picture if I was to come out to where you guys live and I came in your room every day and at 4 o'clock and said, hey, we're going to the gym, and I chucked you guys in the car and like I got like food ready for you and shit, and like as soon as you're done training, boom, I put food in front of you, and then we moved on to other things. We did business stuff, we did podcasting, we just attended to every single thing that we needed to do, and then I dropped you guys back off at like 4 p.m. He was like, holy crap, that was a whirlwind, and that's kind of what the bodybuilding stuff felt to me. It felt like, because I wanted to do it anyway, I felt like I was kind of rather than being like pushed, as I mentioned earlier, I felt I was being kind of pulled along. I wanted to do it, but I really learned to plan ahead and to be ahead, because when you're ahead, it causes a lot less anxiety, and that pull tends to be there rather than like the push. Yes, every once in a while I woke up like really tired or really sore, and I did have to kind of push myself, and I had to listen to like, some bullshit motivational stuff on YouTube or whatever. But for the most part, I didn't really need anything like that. I just, for the most part, because I had the desire to do it, I wanted to do it, there was a good strong pull there the entire time. And I was also like, hey, at the end of this, this is going to like last forever. I need, we need to get it and end up with some good photos and stuff and some good stories. And so I knew I had to, really, really push through to the end. So I learned a lot of follow through, a lot of preparation, even just organization. I don't ever leave my house anymore without a plan for food. What's the goal, and then line that up with what's the plan for food. If the goal is, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to relax on my diet, maybe I say, okay, well, I'm going to eat at my favorite restaurant today. I'm going to get a burrito at lunch or something, right? It doesn't have to always be strict, but always have a plan about what it is that you're going to do. Maybe you are being really strict and you have meal prep, or maybe like I do a lot of fasting because I don't want to meal prep. And that just makes the meal prep look like this. There ain't nothing to do. Yeah, exactly.
How hard have you found it, like with the, I guess you don't really know, but like coming here for us, the palate of the average American is like, it's like very twisted compared to our palate, right? Like everything has to be super sweet. Everything's oily and cheesy and that sort of stuff. And then you and your brother made very conscious decisions to go on like very sort of different diets to the average American diet. But you grew up, like a lot of people that listen to this that know your history, you grew up like eating a lot of those foods, eating the standard American diet. Do you feel like it kind of, and Chris was saying before that it's kind of like hardwired in his love of like sour candy, right? He like had it so much as a kid, was always around it, just ate it as much as he wanted, that it kind of was like ingrained in him almost. And now he has to fight. He feels like he has to fight especially hard to not go like give in to those cravings, because it was such a good association with childhood. Do you find you have those sort of things when you're on these strict diets?
Yeah, you get them quite a bit, but they happen more like when you're hungry, So like the trick is like, and also the trick is like to think about how long is this really going to last for, this urge. It doesn't usually last that long. It usually comes and goes fairly quickly if we're being 100% honest about it. And usually once you're done eating, it's not there anymore either. Yeah. So, like my advice to somebody who's really like stuck, that was really, just is having a hard time with some of that. I mean, there's some real simple things they can do, like, just don't drink things that have calories in it. Like, there's some little things they can do, and to me that would be a little thing, but to them it could be a huge deal. It might be really hard for them. But I mean, the other thing is just don't allow yourself to get hungry, and that doesn't mean that we're stuffing our face all the time either. I would say don't allow yourself to get hungry, and don't overstuff yourself. And you probably you're probably amidst a decent diet, because if your first couple hunger pangs that you get, those are usually kind of false alarms, and they could be from your sugar going up and down and things like that if you don't have a great diet. But what I would say is, like, if you're really craving something, I think it's okay to be like, you know what, I'm going to attend to that at some point, but not for right now. I really want a pizza, or I really want whatever the thing is. You can even write it down if you want.
Yeah.
And say, I'm gonna get to that in a few days. But for now, I'm going to stick to the plan. Just like I advise people with waking up early. Wake up early for several days in a row and put off. Don't worry about being tired.
Yeah.
Just don't be a bitch. Just be tired for a little while. Procrastinate on being tired. Don't worry about. You'll figure it out. You will learn. You'll start to learn. You're like, oh shit, I need to get to bed. Like, I really need to get to bed. And then by the third day of not going to bed on time, you'll find yourself there. And same thing with your food. If you start to eat foods that have more nutrients in them, and they're actually doing your body good rather than just being kind of like empty calories, really. Yeah. You'll start to learn, and it'll be more of just a reaction rather than something that you do out of desperation because you're starving.
Yeah.
But I do think people should do little things, like before they go to like a movie theater, or before they go to a party, or before they go shopping, before they go home from work. I'm talking about people that are, heavier, people that are 30, 40, 50 pounds and up, overweight. Eat before you go into any of those situations. You go to a family gathering, crush as much steak as you need, or have something really savory, like some like an omelet or something, or bacon and eggs, or something, whatever kind of falls within your plan, that has some good flavor and some good taste to it, and fill yourself up pretty good with it. And then hopefully when you get to that party, you're not eating the cookies, you're not eating the donuts. And shopping when you're hungry is a terrible idea.
Oh yeah.
Going to a movie theater, when you're real hungry is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's that instant gratification. It's like whether you get it from like foods and stuff now, because now you can go on your phone and it's like, you have one craving, you're like a click away. You want that 2-hour delivery on Amazon, like that shit's crazy that you guys have that everywhere. We're like, we're sitting down with this guy at this dinner, and I'm like, tell me your worst impulse buys. He's like, all right. I'm like, whoa, how many have you had? Like, it's crazy. And if you keep giving in, then you're going to give in on your diet. You're going to give in. You're not going to train. You're not going to wake up. You're not going to get that email sent that you wanted to send. It's like, it's the same pattern because you're the same person, right? It's just different arenas of your life. And so I think that's what people don't realize is like, oh yeah, I give up on my diet, but like when it comes to work, I do this. Like, not really. Like, you are putting stuff off. You just haven't realized. You find that when you change a lot of your like dietary behaviors and patterns, it has like a flow-on effect to like the team and the other guys at the gym. Maybe it's like, Mark's eating donuts and he's like resting long and stuff. He's not really doing that, because you kind of the leader, this is your space. And then you're like, oh, you're bodybuilding now. And like, oh, he doesn't do that anymore. He drinks more water and like, man, he's doing cardio. Does that have a trickle down effect you find?
All of a sudden they're like, fuck, I'm fat.
Yeah.
This guy's shredded.
Yeah. It does have a huge impact on what they do. The environment here is pretty clean in terms of the food. Rarely are these guys going to like walk in here with like fast food. I mean, they might occasionally, but for the most part, you're going to see everybody with like prepped meals, rice and meat. They kind of doing vertical diet type stuff. Yeah. You'll see them with the Monster Mash combination, but
we got Monster Mash.
Monster Mash is just like ground beef, rice and bone broth, basically. Cool. There's different variations of it, but it tastes really good. You just you cook it up, throw it all together, throw it in a thing of Tupperware, throw a little bone broth in there because it just kind of loosens everything up a little bit, gives it a little liquid,
and then you just drink it
to the meal.
Just put it in a tube.
That would work. No, I mean, you're not obviously not pouring that much in there, but you pour enough in there just to kind of get it a little bit wet, and then you throw it in the microwave, and it heats up pretty good. It's really easy to eat when you have carbs and fat and protein and stuff like that, and salt all together. It's easy to eat. You know, how much it fits each person's diet would depend on, you know, how lean you want to go with the carbs or with the protein rather, and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, you know, no one's going to really like dive into a box of donuts or cookies while we're here at work. The powerlifting gym itself is a little different. You guys saw cookies come into play yesterday, but they never even got eaten. They were just sitting here. I think most of them, like the people that work here and even the people in the gym, I think they would be, unless other people were indulging, like they're not going to really indulge, because they just, I think everyone here wants to be better. Everybody's trying to be better. And I think it's easier for us three to like do better if, you know, we sit down at the table together in a restaurant and they go to bring bread, and you're right away, you're like, no, we don't need that. I'm not going to be like, no, I want to eat bread. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's like, okay, now I'm going out of my way to be fat. And you just kind of set the tone for the whole table, right? And same thing happens when we go grab lunch or something. I'll order a steak, and they'll kind of look at me, and they'll be like, I'll get the same thing he did. You know, kind of thing.
Yeah, we noticed that because we went out with just some tech guys. There's one of our tech sponsors, and they were like, all right, guys, drinks, you know, for the evening. And we're like, yeah, we'll just get like water, no ice. And like we just said that first, and they look at us like, oh, that's weird. Normally it's like beer, wine, margarita, this, that, or like, we're like, okay, we'll have a beer. You know, we're not going to be weird. We get the beer, and then it comes down again. Guys want another? No, I'm good.
Right.
They're like, oh, I just keep saying yes. You know, I'm just used to saying yes. I'll have another.
I didn't know you could say no.
Yeah. And they look at us, and I think, yeah, you're right. You set that standard. And I just don't think people realize how much they do, depending on what position they're in, right? It's interesting because now you're in a position where you're bringing people to you. Whereas, you know, you talked about before, like you were going to those people, right? To those role models, those mentors. How are you picking, like, what's some of the process that you use to like build the culture? Because, you know, it's kind of a conversation we're having a lot on this trip, the different gyms and the different companies we've been touring with. It's all culture, right? We step into the environment straight away. Raph and I look at each other like, yeah, it's good culture, right? We stepped in here, we're like, wow, this is sick. How do you kind of build that, and how do you like keep choosing the right people to fit that culture?
It's you know, a lot of it starts out with finding out who's the wrong people. You know,
right?
You know, they say that most people aren't good at hiring. Like some people really think they're good at hiring. They think they're gifted, but you don't really know anybody until things get real, you know, until you get in certain circumstances and situations. Then you start to really learn more about somebody. So what we do here, you know, for Sling Shot specifically, the gym is a little different, but for Sling Shot specifically, we were slow to hire and we're quick to fire, you know. At least that's the way what we're leaning towards now, so that we want to make sure that you're all in, and but we still won't really know, you know. And so the number one thing for culture is you can't be afraid to like let people go. You can't be afraid to kind of move on. And really, from a business perspective, if someone's working for you and it's very clear they don't have upward mobility, then like,
as into progress in the company.
Yeah, they can't make any progress in the company. And, you know, I guess regardless of age, I guess if it's like an older person, maybe they wouldn't care.
Right.
But I think it's at least your obligation to kind of point it out to them. Say, you know, our philosophy here is if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And you're not moving forward. You're sometimes not doing your job, not completing some of the tasks that we're looking for. And we're not going to be able to, you know, when you get your year-end review, we're not going to be able to give you a bonus. We're not going to be able to think about giving you a raise. And this has been going on for a few months, you know, and then kind of ask them some questions on how they feel about it. And they might kind of come to that conclusion as well. But I think, you know, to build a good culture, you have to end up like going through a lot of people, unfortunately. You hear a lot of great bodybuilders and powerlifters go through a lot of training partners. They just keep running through them, you know, until they find someone that can finally hang. You know, it takes a while to figure out who can actually run with us and who's actually going to limp a lot. You know, if you walk with the lame, you'll develop a limp, is like one of my philosophies. I got that from Louis Simmons. And it's like words to live by. You know, you don't want to be hanging around a bunch of people that are limping around and complaining. You know, if we all go work in the gym and work out, and you guys like, man, like one guy's like, oh man, my elbow, and you're like, my shoulder. Well, now I'm crying about my knee, right?
Yeah.
And instead, like if someone sets the tone, it's like, man, this is gonna be a cool workout. First workout, super training gym, man. This is gonna be. I get to work out with Mark. This is gonna be cool. Well, now I'm excited that you guys are excited to work out with me, and it just boom, it changed everything, right? So, building a culture, I think a lot of it's about finding people that already have the right mindset and not really trying to like build a mindset. Because if we're trying to like build a mindset, we might be forcing something on somebody.
Yeah, for sure. It's always just like you said, it's a hard way to know straight off the bat. And it's true. Like we've had people that come into our businesses and we're like, this person's a savage. It's going to be awesome. People love them. And then, like you said, it just takes a few different moments that really test their character and they kind of unwind. And you're like, oh shit. But you can't feel bad about it because there's no way you could have known until that thing happened, right? But I think exactly what you said is that you got to be quick to fire. But what I find is, right, you want to make these people feel like family. But at the same time, they kind of start blurring that line between staff member and friend. And then it comes to that point where you got to be quick to fire. It's tough. It is tough.
It's hard to say, and it's hard to be so callous about it. But honestly, anyone that works for this company, if we part ways in terms of employment, we probably won't be friends anymore. That's just, if somebody wanted to continue friendship, I'd be all for it. But usually they don't care to. You just, and eventually I'm sure we would probably lose touch as well. I think this idea of like, it being fam, all this stuff, I think is, it's just a stretch. It's a stretch. It's not family, I had an oldest brother pass away, about 10 years ago from drug addiction, and he was bipolar and stuff. And he was awesome in some ways, but he was a lunatic in others. I would never have a friend that I, still cared about that acted that way. You know what I mean? So family is different. Yeah. Family can
put up with a lot.
Yeah, family can cross the line all day long.
They can't get fired.
And you got to kind of be like, all right, well, we'll figure this out, because you love them, and it's different. And I grew up with him, and he was like an idol for me too. And so, from that perspective, of trying to, have everyone be family, I don't think it's great. And I think that you can make a big mistake too. You can, I mentioned spending time with people. Well, spending time with people is one thing. Hanging out with them is another. And then hanging out with them in the wrong environment's not great either. So you want your employees to be employees. You want them to participate and act like employees sometimes, and you want them to be free of you. A couple months back, I was like, man, like, it's easy to sit there and like bitch, right? But then I was like, well, it's my own fault. This is my team. So anything that happens, it's my fault, 100%. It's not their fault. It's mine. Right. If I don't like something, I need to communicate to somebody. That's that's number one, right? Then we need to figure out how do we implement some strategies into making some of these things work. And if I'm not communicating properly, well, then what kind of leader am I, right? That's puts me in a shitty spot, right? So those are all the things you got to kind of think about. If this is a team that you formed and you're frustrated about anything, you need to figure out maybe you need some different team members, or maybe you need to add some people. Like maybe you're asking to, you got to think about it in as many different ways as you can. You got to try to be rational about it. And then, even on top of all that, your interactions with your employees, you got to be careful that they're not always, it's not too chummy. It's not too like buddy, you want to make sure that you should try your best to be, and I fuck around a lot, you should, and so I should talk, but you should try your best to be maybe a little bit more professional than everybody else, a little bit more buttoned up than everybody. You should try.
Yeah.
Try your best.
I think so. Yeah, and it's just, I think you have to be too chummy. You have to be too close to that person to realize, oh, the line was way back there. And I didn't know that I'd walked so far past it because I had to end up here first to be like, okay, it's time to walk back.
And it doesn't mean you can't have a big heart. It doesn't mean you can't help somebody. It doesn't mean you can't say, hey, you know what? You sit down with somebody, they're super upset, and you say, hey, I didn't know that you had all these obligations, your car payment. I want to handle that for you, but I don't want any strings attached to anything. You don't owe me anything. I just want to, like, to me, the car payment isn't a huge deal. And I know it's a huge deal to you, and it's frustrating to you because you're having trouble making your other payments. Let me do that for you for now. Okay, let's get that off the table. That's something that we could take that excuse of you being frustrated for that. We can roll it up and throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
And it can now give them some other things to concentrate on, and maybe it gives them a little bit of peace of mind. So you could still be kind-hearted, and you could still do great and wonderful things for people. It's not that you can't be friends with them, but to get too close can be a mistake. And I think it's important that the employees have time where you're not around. They need to be able to talk shit. They need to be able to make fun of you. You know, I don't know what they do and what they don't do behind my back.
Oh, they're talking mad shit before you're here.
Yeah, but if they're not making fun of me, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
I would make fun of me, you know. And you're always gonna have jokes and things about your boss and things like that. And they need that space.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think of the all the mediums that you like to communicate with, you know, the outside world? What do you prefer the most? Podcasting, YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah. I like YouTube a lot, and I like podcasting a lot. You know, I've always liked YouTube, and YouTube existed before the podcasting started to really explode. And so I think that's why my mind goes to YouTube first. But I like the longer format stuff. Yeah. Instagram is amazing, though. Instagram is great. Facebook had its place for a long time, and it's, there's still millions of people on there, and that has its place too. But I think that Instagram is probably the most fascinating. It's like the most addicting.
Yeah. But
I think that YouTube is the one where you really start to learn more about somebody, and you get to see the longer format, the longer dialogue, and that's probably what makes Instagram so addicting. Is it used to start out, it used to only be 15 seconds.
Yeah, I remember that.
And now you get a little bit longer time, but most people won't even dare to make a minute video anymore because no one can hold anybody's attention for more than like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I would say my favorite is YouTube and podcasting because of the long format.
Yeah, it gives you enough time to kind of communicate the message. And I think when people meet you and they know you through the podcast, it's a whole different person to someone that watches your Instagram. They have no idea who you are. They've just like double tapped your booty photos or your pecs or your biceps and stuff. They don't know your personality. They don't know your values. They don't know how you feel about certain things, which is why I think that, I think it happened a year ago. It was the first time ever that influencers saw a downtick in what they could ask for per dollar per 1,000 engagements or whatever, because companies are starting to realize that the longer form stuff has more engagement, has deeper engagement, and if they're going to push products or they're going to talk about certain things, that audience, 10,000 really engaged podcast followers, that have accumulated hours and hours and hours instead of, 1 million followers on Instagram, it's totally different. Is that kind of how you feel about it as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that the longer format stuff is just more interesting. You get to really learn about somebody.
Yeah.
I think Joe Rogan, is kind of like, he's like set the trend for it, with how long his podcasts are. And I would say, like, obviously you're going to be highly influenced by someone that's that influential on the world, period, right? And on the footprint of what podcasting is. He did such an amazing job. But I guess simultaneously, while he was doing that, our podcast just kind of kept getting longer and longer. But the reason for it wasn't because I was like, I need to do what Joe Rogan does. Maybe in the subconscious mind, maybe it was there. But when I was interviewing people, I wasn't really getting, strong enough content from them sometimes if we talked shorter. If we talked for an hour to somebody who was 30 years old and who was pretty experienced and who's been around, been around the world or something like that, or has competed in a bunch of different states and countries and things like that, an hour just wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
We needed more time, and then we would kind halfway through their podcast, they would say something crazy that we were like, whoa, we knew about the 900-pound deadlift, but we didn't know about, this other thing, or, we had just no idea. So having the longer format really draws you into, now you get to learn the person's history, you get to know what it was like for them growing up, and you get to learn so much more about them.
Yeah. We talked to, you actually had James Fitzgerald in the studio, which I thought was super cool. But, for him, we've had a conversation with him a few times about what training starts to become like the older you get, right? When you can't hit the same numbers that you used to, because firstly, there's just not the time there. And then eventually maybe the desire goes away as well. How are you sort of like, I mean, you're not there yet, but dealing with a bit of a shift of like, okay, I'm not going to be able to hit my best total in 5 years. That thing on the horizon is just not going to be there for it anymore. Like, where do you kind of dangle a carrot for you in terms of keeping yourself motivated for training and, choosing something to chase?
Yeah, in the Bulgarian training system, that which came from weightlifting, they did what they called a daily max, and they would work up to whatever was there for the day. That's where a lot of my training started. And so with the conjugate system adapted some of that. It's like let's say you max out today on floor press, and then 2 months from now you max out again on floor press. Well, it doesn't really matter if you beat your previous max, because it's the daily max, and it's that max for the day. And it's possible that you just had a stressful week, and that week sucks, and it's 3% less than the previous workout. There's also the possibility that maybe everything went well, you ate well, you slept well, right, and maybe you actually gained some strength along the way, and there's a possibility that it's a little bit better. So having kind of played that game for a long time, I don't really care that much. I just want to lift stuff that's challenging, and yeah, sometimes I'll look at the weight and I'll be like, there's only 225 on there. Something's wrong, and then somebody else, in our group is like lifting the same, and oftentimes lifting more than me, and I'm like, oh man, okay, my time is kind of come and gone. But I try not to really focus on that. I'm like, what's the intent? What's the goal? Like, what are we trying to do? What's the intent of today? And if we can always kind of think of that, what are we after? If we're after hypertrophy, well, then we need a certain amount of sets and reps to acquire that, and there's a certain amount of reps and sets that are associated with getting stronger, and or dynamic effort work, whatever it is that you select. Whatever you selected, stay in your lane and stay there and do that for your workout. Right. If you wanted to do 4 sets of 10 and use the same weight for each set, and you wanted to do a slower descent on every rep, then do it. And don't worry about the other person using 405 when you're like, man, I'm getting crushed by this 2 plates or whatever the scenario ends up being. You have to just end up being comfortable with it. I do believe that, satisfied athletes suck. That definitely holds true. Like, you can't be satisfied with where you're at, but you can still be happy and you can still be excited. I recognize that, there's some changes I'd like to make. I'd like to, have like bigger lats, or I'd like to do like A, B, and C, right? But how much different? Like, let's say that you guys come back to the States, or I go to wherever the fuck you guys are from.
Australia.
I go to Australia, and I see you guys like 2 years from now. How different am I going to look? Probably not that much different. Even if I was to lose like 20 pounds and get a lot leaner, it still wouldn't look that different. Or if I was to weigh 20 pounds more, it still wouldn't look that different. So my training age and how long I've been kind of doing all this for, it's not going to allow for you guys to be like, oh my God, you look like Jason Khalipa all of a sudden, or whatever, like, it's not going to cause that huge of a change. So recognizing all that and understanding that, I mean, those big, massive changes, they only happen they happen more like in a decade, and they happen for your first decade of training. Right. And they're not going to happen in the second or third decade of training. So I realize that that's already gone, and I'm fine with it. The good news is, I had a goal to squat 1,000 pounds, and I squatted 1,080. I had a goal to bench 800 pounds, and I benched 854. I had a goal to deadlift 800 pounds, and unfortunately that was the one that got away from me. I did a 766 deadlift. but I feel great. I feel so good about what I did in powerlifting. I feel awesome about it. And I keep kind of hovering back to doing a little bit of raw, like bench pressing here and there. But to me, that's just like, I just doing it for like a goal. It's not everything to me like those big powerlifting weights were.
Do you feel more longevity and bodybuilding sort of training now? Like it's, a little bit more of a pump, a little bit less load through the joints, like higher reps, more blood volume.
The coolest thing ever about strength training, what I'm attracted to so much about it is, and bodybuilding. So the cool thing about bodybuilding is that anyone can bodybuild. Not anyone can do Olympic lifting, and not anyone's cut out to really do like long-term powerlifting and to like really like advance at it and actually be like even just like decent at it. Like powerlifting's hard, and to do powerlifting for a long time, like to play powerlifter for a couple months or even a couple years is probably kind of fun and exciting, but to really be a powerlifter and to go through like the weight gain and go through it sucks. It could be really, really challenging. Bodybuilding, the cool thing about bodybuilding, like I said, is anyone can do it. We can all go in to do a workout right now, and we can all do the same thing. We do bicep tricep workout. And it's like, so what if we're doing close grip bench? I might use like more weight or something, but it's all going to be the same movements. If we do a CrossFit workout, there's going to be movements that you guys can do. Maybe you guys are proficient at like doing ring dips and stuff. Well, I can't do a ring dip at the moment. I wouldn't really know how to do like a handstand push-up. I never even tried one. So there'd be like, or walking on your hands or just like whatever CrossFit-y thing that someone would throw at you. I have my limitations, as do a lot of other people. So not everyone can do a CrossFit workout. I know they say they scale it, but in bodybuilding, who do you know that can't do a preacher curl, especially like on like a machine?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it is like
Grandma can do it.
Yeah, as long as you got two hands and two arms that are kind of working, then
got this. Let's
go.
Yeah,
then you're good to go. And so that's a huge advantage of bodybuilding. Where bodybuilding and powerlifting are quite different is you can advance in bodybuilding for quite some time, probably until you're almost like into like your 50s, but you're probably most likely not going to acquire new muscle mass without performance enhancing drugs. Most likely after the age of like 45 or so, it's probably going to start to decline, and you'll probably look your best between 35, between 25 and like 45, somewhere in that range, depending on the person.
Unless you're Mike O'Home.
Yeah, unless
keep peaking.
Yeah, Mike does look. Mike and Stan Efferding.
Outliers.
Yeah, mutants, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's going to be some sort of downward trend with your physique and bodybuilding. You start to lose some muscle mass, and just things won't look the same, and you won't be as tight and things like that. That's what you see from most people. Powerlifting, however, you can get stronger for a really, really long period of time, and you can very easily powerlift and do something that represents powerlifting quite well all the way until the day you die, basically.
Right.
And another cool thing about powerlifting is that, like I mentioned with bodybuilding, anyone can do a bodybuilding workout. Well, anyone can do a powerlifting workout as well. And like I mentioned earlier too, in my opinion, I don't think anyone can be a power lifter, like a legitimate power lifter. I don't mean like just get into a powerlifting meet.
Like multiple meets over many years. Yeah,
multiple meets and a good amount of progress. I'm not really talking necessarily about the strength, but it just, and the reason why I say that is because it takes a lot of time, and the requirements that go on during that is it's just it's overwhelming for most people.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that when it comes to powerlifting and bodybuilding, that you can get just about anybody to do it, and to some extent, some strongman stuff, like anyone can do a farmer's carry. To me that's exciting. Like I could have, my wife and my sister-in-law can come in, and we can do a bench press workout, and then we can do biceps, triceps together, and we can do a farmer's carry to end the workout. It's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I think
it's very
that's
inclusive.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if these 4 questions reached you, but we asked all, I guess, 4 final questions, but I heard you're a guy that kind of likes to go on the fly anyway, so we'll just
done a few shows, so.
Yeah, it's got some experience. So first question, you have a podcast, so is there any guest out there that you haven't had yet that you would love to interview, and why?
I think, I'm pretty confident we'll get to everybody, we'll get to everybody. Yeah. We have a good list of people, coming up, and I'm just really excited to be able to interview those people, and, the chips will fall, where they need to fall into place.
So we can't reveal any of that list yet? Maybe someone you're looking forward to?
I look forward to all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good...
Was there anyone you've had on so far that you couldn't believe that you got on?
No.
Anyone that surprised you? That you were like, man, that story was... Or like you went down a path I wasn't expecting. That was super cool.
We've had a lot of great stories on the podcast, but now I'm not an easy person to surprise, and I'm not going to be impressed with anything that I've done, for sure. So when it comes to, we've had Gary Vee on the podcast and Stone Cold and stuff. I expect those things to happen. I expect for everybody to have a Sling Shot in their gym bag. That's expected. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Right. And we're supposed to have good interviews. We're supposed to have good content. So I haven't had anything that has really been shocking or overwhelming. We've had some really good guests that pump out some really great content, like Stan Efferding, and I am proud of the fact that we have shed some light on people that maybe otherwise wouldn't get light shed on them.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, some people don't always. I mean, some people are too busy, putting shit into test tubes and running experiments on mice to post on Instagram for us to know about them, right? And so we had this chick on before, Hazel Gale. No one had heard of this girl ever. She was an amateur world kickboxing champion turned therapist, and she talked about mental health on our show. And that is, we've never had more people that I can remember repost on their Instagram stories and tag us and write long posts about how it made them feel and stuff, their own struggles they've been going through. And I didn't even know who she was before she came on the show, right? She just came through a friend and was random, and I was almost like, oh man, do we really want to do this show? Is she even going to be good? And then you're just sitting there and it's just completely blown away.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, mental health is a huge thing, and it's one of those things that's tough to tackle. We had someone on recently that talked quite a bit about mental health, and one of the things that she was saying is how connected it is to your food, and then also saying and this is it's a weird thing to say, but it's very true. Is and it's hard to say because people are so sensitive when it comes to mental health, and they think they really have a problem. And some people really do have a problem. I mean, look, there's some people that will chop somebody up into little pieces and put them in a box or eat them or something, right? There's some people that are...
That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. Who would think of, doing something so wacky to somebody, right? But for the most part, a lot of the people that think they have these real deep-rooted problems, they're just behind all the time. They're just not getting stuff done when they're supposed to. And a lot of times it could be something that they didn't repair from when they were young, and that they need to go back and repair. They need a therapist, or they need to they need to communicate with somebody about this problem that they have. Or they're just behind all the time. They're just not, they haven't figured out a way to be prepared enough for each and every day to get ahead and stay ahead. And somebody might hear somebody like me say that, and they'll think, what a dick, he's not compassionate or whatever. But I had a brother that was bipolar. I saw his life unravel, before my eyes, and his life was compromised because he wouldn't figure out a way to organize himself enough to get ahead. He still made choices. It wasn't like he couldn't choose one thing or the other. He had a harder time being happy than most people, and I would agree that that's probably something that was locked into his mind. His highs and lows were a little different than most, but I know a lot of people like that who function just fine, So when someone says mental health is kind of like all in your head, literally, you still have a choice. Most people still have a choice. Those people that kill people and rape people and do these heinous crimes, maybe those people, I don't know how they operate, but maybe they don't have a choice. Maybe they're just insane or whatever the word would be to describe them. But I think for most of us, I think we do have a choice, and we have a choice about what we eat, what time we go to bed. If you're not eating properly, and your sleep is off, I think that you can't even really say that you're depressed because you have problems with eating, you have problems with sleep. Let's not blame the fact that you feel sad. You feel sad because you're not taking care of this stuff that you need to take care of that makes up being a human being.
It's funny how like when people travel, when they get on a plane, they feel like they have all these problems, and then they get on a plane and they just go somewhere else, right? In that giant tube, and they look back at their life, where they're from, and they're like, oh, I'm just doing it all to myself. If I just change these 5 things, or I get rid of this person, or I do this here, it's so simple. It's so easy. It's just like when you're stuck in it, it all just seems overwhelming, right? When you're in the eye of the fucking hurricane, you don't feel like you can get out. That's what I tell people. Like, take some time off, go travel, like do something else, get some perspective, and you'll realize it's not such a big problem. Go watch a fucking documentary like we did last night on the guy that built rocket ships, and you're like, well, shit. Okay, maybe what we're doing over here is like really not that crazy. Like, this guy can build a rocket.
Well, first he made butter.
Yeah.
Invented butter and then invented the rocket ship.
Yeah, just a little bit of perspective sometimes I think goes a long way. It's helpful for people.
Invented butter.
Well, he invented separating milk, so like the fast way to separate butter quickly from the milk.
Also is the reason we're telling Chris is he basically got from the machine that created butter efficiently. There were these steam tubes as part of the machinery that he built. He's this Swedish or Norwegian engineer or something. Anyway, so you know how in a rocket, like at the bottom, it goes in on the thruster and then there's that turn piece out. So that bend was created by this butter engineer, right? So he squeezed the tube, this steam pipe, and it was able to put more pressure into the machine so it could use the steam fuel more efficiently, create more pressure or whatever. But that just simple squeezing of the pipe, like set off a chain reaction for us to be able to utilize fuel better, create more pressure, and then thrust things further into the air. It's a pretty crazy thing. Like, it's pretty rad. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, Germans got their hands on it and then started making missiles and then shot them at London and stuff. But hey, this is just how history goes sometimes.
It always goes that way. Whatever way people are either thinking of violence or pornography. It's like those are like the two things.
Death and sex.
Yeah,
and a lot of the time, same altogether.
Yeah, it's like a drone. Like someone's like, someone's gonna attach like a machine gun to it and just like go on a shooting spree, and it's like, someone's gonna use it to be a pervert to go in someone's backyard and look at them naked in their pool or something. It's like, oh my god. It's like that's where the thoughts go.
Yeah, it's funny. Second question: what is something that you do every day or try and do most days that we haven't mentioned yet, that you feel like is essential to the success of your day?
I've been doing a lot of this stuff for so long. It's like, everything's pretty routine. So I don't know if there's anything out of the ordinary that I do, but I do like things to be difficult. I like resistance. I've recognized the resistance that we have in the gym is a tool to build. Where there's resistance and where there's pain, you're going to have some gains. You're not going to be able to gain momentum or get ahead in life unless there's something kind of like you need a little bit of weight, to kind of battle against. And so that's kind of what I look for. I kind of look for, what's going to be. I don't always try to pick the harder path. I mean, obviously you want to be efficient as well. So I don't want to waste a bunch of time doing a bunch of shit that's too hard all the time. But for the most part, I want to try to make things, make things more difficult. Wake up, at 3 and get to the gym at 4, and just it's like set up that way on purpose. I want it to be kind of hard. The fasting that I do, I mean, I'm also reasonable about it. I guess that would be, to answer your question, that would probably be the number one thing that people don't realize about people there might be some other people that are maybe deeper in on some of these things, but like I feel like I'm pretty reasonable. Like I'll go out and have drinks with my wife. I'll like last night my son wanted to go to sushi. I went to sushi. I just eat like the stuff that tastes good there. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not like, oh man, that's going to really affect my abs tomorrow. Obviously, like when you're locked in and you're doing a bodybuilding show or something like that, it's different.
Story, yeah.
And if I'm going to do a powerlifting meet, like, there's certain requirements I need to have set up. But right. I feel like I try to be pretty reasonable with stuff. I like to make a lot of family time. You guys kind of see some of the posts and stuff. I make a lot of posts about my family and stuff. My day starts at 3, and it usually ends at like 7. And that's a message I try to share with people often is like, I'm normally in bed by like 7 or 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but normally in bed between, I'd say 7:30 and 8:30 every night. And so I always try to teach people, it's not about like when I wake up, it's about when I go to bed.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to share a message of you that you should walk around sleep deprived all the time, and not function well. That amount of sleep works well for me, and it allows me to function, allows me to get through the day efficiently and effectively, and have good workouts, and have tons of energy here all day, and do podcasts. And we have days where I do 2 podcasts in a row, and then someone else comes in like this, and I end up doing another podcast, and we've got meetings and a bunch of other stuff. And I feel like I have energy all the time to do all of it. I feel like I have energy to work out multiple times a day. So I feel really good about where I'm at. But I would probably say that the thing that people would probably be most surprised about would be the fact that I'm pretty reasonable with what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do.
Right.
And I'm not as like uncompromising as you might think.
Yeah, that's good. That's an awesome message. Third thing, is there anything, well, I guess we sort of just answered it with that question, but we're going to skip that question. I feel like you just answered it. Basically, the question is there anything that you recently changed your mind on that was a strong held belief? And maybe it wasn't a strong held belief, but yeah, being reasonable about things, right? Mm-hmm. Not being so uncompromising. It's a good message.
Yeah, I think to kind of expand upon it a little bit more, I mean, in my day-to-day routine doesn't look all that different from anybody else. I mean, I try to make a list of things that I want to try to get taken care of, or things that I want to get to or do. But again, back to being reasonable, I might have like 8 things on there. What am I really going to get to? And what do people teach you? Let's say that you hurt your shoulder. I'm going to show you 8 exercises that you need to do at home. That ain't going to work. I'm going to say, I might give you 2 or 3 options and say, you know what, focus on doing one. I gave you a couple options in case you're in the gym or in case you're at your house. I gave you some options. Here's a stretch and here's this other thing. And if we can get to 1 every day, that'd be great. So I have these things that I need to do every day, and they don't always get done. I don't care. I'll get to it. It'll end up happening. I like noise. I like things to be like a little bit busy. So that's why I go to coffee shops often. I could easily work from my house, where there's like the distraction of like my own kids, and I could put the TV on and I could have noise that way. But I like that there's like kind of there's other people. There's like activity. So if I want to take my headphones off for a minute, I could just kind of like look around. Yeah. Or if I can just be like, I just feel like going for like a walk or something. Yeah. I think one thing that makes me different than most is like most of the people I get around, they always talk about reading. Like you need to read. Well, you don't really necessarily need to read. You need to, first of all, you need to have the ability to produce. I think that's actually like the most important thing. So you need to be able to like do stuff and create stuff rather than just consume stuff all the time. For sure. And most people are just always consuming, and they don't do anything with the information that they're gathering. Yeah. So I think that's a sign of being retarded, to be 100% honest with you. I know we're not supposed to use that word anymore. It was the only word that popped in my head for that one.
I feel like in Australia it's fine.
Yeah. But I do find it amazing how many podcasts and how many documentaries and how many things people watch and listen to, and they don't do shit with it. It's like, it's almost, and I also run into a lot of people, and this is going to sound, this will sound kind of funny in a way, but I don't care. I'll mention something to somebody, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's like this thing in this book that I just read," and I'm like, and they'll tell me, they'll be like, "You have to read it." I'm like, "It sounds like I halfway wrote it," And that happens a lot, and it's not because I'm brilliant or anything. It's because I still consume, I still educate myself all the time. I do listen to podcasts. I have weird things that I listen to for information that are just a little bit different. because I'm trying to get different information. I still listen to people that are great and motivational and inspirational that can get you fired up, like a Tony Robbins. Like, who doesn't, some people don't like him, but for the most part, it's like he has a lot of great things to say if you'll actually stop and listen to him for a minute.
He's a beast.
Someone like Eric Thomas gets you all fired up. You guys, the hip hop preacher, right?
Yeah, it's good.
There's a lot of people like that gets you really like moved and motivated. And I listen to a lot of that stuff, but I'll listen to stuff that's maybe just unconventional. I'll listen to like Earl Nightingale or something, which is so boring. Yeah. I just want to like smash my head through a table. But these principles that were developed, I mean, they're in the Bible. Yeah. These are now they're then taken and done other things with and said different ways, but. They say the ultimate. I'm not even super religious or anything, but they say the ultimate leadership book is the Bible. But I'll listen to a lot of this stuff to the point where I'm sick of it. Like, I just don't even want to listen to it anymore.
The same thing over and again.
A lot of times, yeah. And my car is that might be a little different than what most people are doing. Maybe most people are either on the phone or listening to music maybe in their car. But my car is a classroom. And I use that as a tool to teach me. And then I also, what I also recommend to people, and this is kind of aside from like a day-to-day routine, but use your past as a learning tool. There's a lot of great things that you can learn from your past. Like, did that really work for you? The time that you mistreated somebody, the time you punched somebody because they said something dumb to you, or like whatever it was. Like, did that work well? If it was something that worked well, you treating that person the right way, or was it a poor decision? You can kind of use your past as an educational tool. They say use your past as a tool and not a club to beat yourself over the head with. Right. Use it as something that you can actually do something valuable with to move forward.
Yeah, that's great.
Do you do that with journaling or anything, or you just like to reflect?
Yeah, I write a lot of shit down. Yeah, I do, and I talk to my phone, and I do all kinds of different things like that. I do like to not only write stuff down, that's half the battle. And the other half is to go back and actually look at it, So doing is, and producing is the writing of it, which is great. And then I even try to write my own thoughts. Like, I'll write something down that I heard someone say. We always have quotes on the board out here. I'll write something down that someone says, and then I'll kind of like almost write, not like what it means to me really, maybe, but like just a different version of it, just so it makes more sense to me, because the wording of it might be old, or the wording of it might be words I wouldn't use, and then it tends to sink in a little bit better. But I always try to go back and reread the stuff. The thing is, I write so poorly, it's insane. I can barely read. I'm like, who the hell? Like, who in the hell wrote this? It's the handwriting's so bad. I'm like, oh my God, this is brutal.
You guys would have a competition on like who's more illegible. Yeah. Yeah,
it's good. That's why no one can read your journal.
Yeah,
So
it's encoded.
I don't think that that information that people say that you have to read is necessarily true. Obviously, books have tremendous value, but even if you're going to read a book, rather than reading 3 books a month, read 1 book every other month and actually do something with the book that you read.
Yeah, that's right. So, final question is a book recommendation. Do you have one?
There you go.
I know. I was thinking as you were saying those things, I'm like, wow, I wonder if there's actually going to be a book here. But I'm sure there's something in here that, you got some books on your shelf. I don't know if they're yours. That's definitely you on that magazine. But do you have a book that you would recommend to people, or something you're reading at the moment or listening to inside your giant classroom on wheels? It's actually a classroom.
Yeah, I don't read, so I don't have any recommendations on books.
Or a podcast that you like?
Mark Bell's Power Project.
Fuck yeah. Of course. Well, look, for everyone listening, it's cool to have the opportunity for us personally. It was great to be able to like come here from, the movie when you were like, teaching high school kids in football to like where you are now. It's an amazing journey, and it's inspiring for us. So thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it. Thank you for welcoming us into your home, your gym.
Thank you, guys.
That was awesome.